It started with a single sentence, calm, cold, and devastating. Joe Rogan leaned into his microphone, looked straight into the camera, and said the words that sent shockwaves through the internet. Charlie Kirk's widow is not who you think she is. Within hours, that one line turned into a digital wildfire. Twitter, Reddit, TikTok, every corner of the internet lit up with clips, reactions, and theories. Fans couldn't believe what they were hearing. Rogan wasn't hinting anymore. He wasn't speculating. He was exposing, and this time he didn't hold back. In his latest episode, Rogan dropped what he called irrefutable evidence that Charlie Kirk's widow, once praised as a symbol of grace and integrity, had been manipulating the narrative around her late husband's death. He described her as calculated, cruel, and shockingly cold, claiming she had used tragedy as a branding tool to build her own public image. She's weaponized sympathy, Rogan said. And the receipts. They're right here. Then he did something nobody expected. He played a series of private recordings allegedly leaked by one of her former advisors. The audio, Rogan claimed, revealed the widow laughing while discussing media coverage of her husband's passing. At one point, she could allegedly be heard saying, "Grief sells." People love a widow story. That single quote spread faster than any clip in Rogan's career. In less than an hour, tags like #WidowExposed and #RoganLeaks flooded social media. People were stunned. How could someone who'd spent months portraying herself as a devoted to piété, heartbroken partner be caught talking like this? And just like that, the internet's beloved widow became the most hated woman online. But here's the thing, Rogan wasn't done. Because what he revealed next made everything before it look tame. To understand how Joe Rogan's brutal takedown of Charlie Kirk's widow sent shockwaves across the internet, you have to rewind to the very beginning of what many are now calling the most deceptive love story in modern politics. When Charlie Kirk passed away, the world mourned. He wasn't just a controversial figure. He was a movement, a voice that commanded millions. And when his wife, the now infamous widow, stepped in to honor his legacy, she was immediately elevated to near-saint status. She was calm, articulate, and every inch the picture of the devoted partner left behind. She cried on television. She spoke about carrying on Charlie's dream. She quoted his speeches, held candlelight vigils, and founded a scholarship fund in his name. Her social media pages filled with Bible verses and photos of her holding his portrait, the perfect image of sorrow and strength. For months, the world believed her. Even critics gave her credit for her composure. But behind that angelic exterior, insiders say a very different woman was running the show, one who was colder, sharper, and far more manipulative than anyone realized, according to multiple former staff members. Things changed almost immediately after the funeral. They say the widow called a private meeting at the foundation's headquarters and announced, "From now on, everything goes through me." That was the first red flag. Then came the quiet firings. Longtime employees, people who had worked side by side with Charlie, were suddenly dismissed without explanation. Donor emails stopped going through. Event schedules vanished from the site. And within 3 weeks, the foundation's mission statement mysteriously changed. Instead of focusing on Charlie's vision for civic education, it now read, "Building a better tomorrow through inspired leadership." Leadership, a word the widow made sure was synonymous with herself. From there, things got even stranger. Sources say she began surrounding herself with media consultants and PR strategists, not educators or activists, but image managers. One insider described her inner circle as a cult of control. Every public appearance was scripted. Every photo was staged. Even her wardrobe was coordinated around the narrative she wanted to project. Muted colors, minimal jewelry, just enough fragility to appear sympathetic but never weak. One of her advisors later leaked a line. She reportedly said during a rehearsal for a televised interview, "I don't need to cry. They'll cry for me." That quote, which Rogan later repeated on air, became the symbol of what he called grief performance art. But it wasn't just about optics. Joe Rogan and his team began noticing inconsistencies in the widow's story long before this most recent episode. Back in early interviews, she claimed to have been uninvolved in her husband's foundation, just a supportive partner. Yet leaked emails suggested she had been attending board meetings months before Charlie's death. And once he was gone, she moved with alarming speed to assume full control. Then came the money. According to documents obtained by independent journalists, and later confirmed by Rogan sources, the foundation's financial filings showed massive reallocations of funds shortly after Charlie's passing. Large sums that had previously gone toward youth outreach and event logistics were redirected into public engagement initiatives and brand partnerships. What were those partnerships? No one could tell. The descriptions were vague, the accounting opaque, and the payees often listed as private contractors when one board member allegedly questioned the sudden changes. The widow reportedly told them, "You either trust me, or you can leave with him." She didn't mean Charlie. Rogan had been tracking these developments for months. In quiet segments of his podcast, he'd drop subtle jabs questioning the authenticity of media-made martyrs, talking about how tragedy often turns into business. But he never mentioned her name directly, not until he was sure. And according to him, the final piece of the puzzle came from someone who used to work in her inner circle, an assistant who left abruptly last fall. This assistant, known only as Lydia, sent Rogan's team what she claimed were voice recordings, financial records, and private text exchanges, proving that the widow had been manipulating the narrative from day one. Among them was the now viral audio clip where she laughs about public sympathy. Grief sells. People love a widow's story. That one sentence detonated her entire reputation. Rogan didn't just play the clip, he contextualized it. He paused mid-episode, took a deep breath, and said, "This isn't a slip of the tongue. This is a person who knows exactly what she's doing." He then read a transcript of another conversation allegedly between the widow and a PR strategist. In it, she appears to discuss how to handle donations. Strategist: "The foundation looks shaky. People are asking for transparency." Widow: "Transparency doesn't sell. Hope does. Keep it vague. Make them feel like part of the healing." The audience went silent. Rogan leaned back, shook his head, and said, "She's not mourning. She's marketing." That clip spread across social media faster than any political story of the week. People who had never even followed Charlie Kirk's movement suddenly became obsessed with the scandal. Reaction videos flooded YouTube. Twitter threads dissected every syllable. Some defended her, claiming the clips were taken out of context. Others said it didn't matter. The mask had slipped, and then came the photos. A tabloid leaked images of the widow at a luxury resort just weeks after Charlie's funeral, laughing, champagne in hand, surrounded by what looked like potential investors. The date stamped on the photo matched the exact day she posted a tearful Instagram caption about spending the weekend in prayer. Rogan flashed that image on screen and said, "This isn't grief. This is strategy." What really stunned people, though, wasn't just her hypocrisy. It was how eerily consistent everything Rogan had said turned out to be. The leaks kept confirming his claims. Every day brought new screenshots, new voice notes, new whispers from people who had once been silent out of fear. A former donor told a local journalist, "She was charming in public, but terrifying in private. Every meeting was a performance. If you disagreed with her, she'd smile and say, 'Don't forget who the cameras love.'" Another insider leaked a message allegedly sent by her communications manager during a media crisis. "If anyone asks, we're the victims. Always the victims." Rogan read that line aloud during the podcast, then laughed bitterly. Victims. She turned a man's death into a business plan. By the end of the episode, it wasn't just gossip anymore. It was a full-scale character assassination, backed by evidence that even her defenders couldn't dismiss. And yet, the story wasn't done unraveling. Because as the dust settled from Rogan's bombshell episode, a new set of leaks began circulating, ones that didn't just make her look heartless, but dangerous. According to insiders, there were messages that hinted at something darker. Messages suggesting that Charlie's unexpected passing might not have been as random as it seemed. And when Rogan saw those messages for himself, he reportedly said just one thing: "If this is real, she's finished. If this is real, she's finished." The morning after Joe Rogan's bombshell episode, chaos spread like wildfire. Every headline screamed the same words: Joe Rogan exposes Charlie Kirk's widow. Cable news anchors were divided, some accusing Rogan of defamation, others calling him the only one brave enough to tell the truth. On social media, a war broke out between her defenders and those convinced she was a cold-blooded manipulator hiding behind a veil of tragedy. But the real drama wasn't what the public saw, it was what was happening behind closed doors. Because just 12 hours after Rogan's episode aired, a new file was dropped anonymously into the inbox of several journalists, including Rogan's producer. The subject line read, "You only uncovered half the story. Here's the rest." Inside the email was a video, grainy, time-stamped 2 weeks after Charlie Kirk's death. The footage showed the widow sitting at a private dinner with 2 unidentified men. She wasn't crying. She wasn't grieving. She was smiling. "Widow, people are emotional right now. That's good for us. Man number 1, you're sure it'll hold. Widow, oh, it'll hold. We'll feed them the tragedy until the rebrand's ready." Those words, "feed them the tragedy," sent shockwaves across the internet. Rogan immediately referenced the video in a follow-up live stream, saying, "This isn't about someone losing her husband. This is about someone building an empire off of grief." The audience went silent. Clips of her smiling at the dinner table were replayed everywhere, on TikTok, on news channels, even on late-night TV. Hashtags like #GriefEmpire and #widow, REBRAND, trended for days, but then came the first twist. A former employee of the Kirk Foundation, who had stayed silent for nearly a year, broke her NDA and came forward on live TV. Her name was Alicia Grant, a mid-level manager who claimed she had witnessed blatant manipulation and financial deception firsthand. The widow wasn't trying to honor Charlie, Alicia said. She was trying to erase him and replace him. She described meetings where the widow allegedly demanded that all of Charlie's speeches be pulled from public archives and re-edited into new videos where she appeared alongside him, spliced in post-production to make it seem like they were partners in the movement. Alicia's voice cracked when she added, "It was like she wanted to rewrite history, not preserve it." And she didn't stop there. She presented receipts, email chains, invoices, and memos suggesting that hundreds of thousands of dollars had been redirected from charitable funds into media influence campaigns and brand image consulting. One invoice in particular caught Rogan's attention. It listed a $95,000 payment for something called Legacy Control Initiative. The document showed the widow's digital signature. Rogan read it live. His voice was steady, but his words hit like gunfire. She didn't just hijack a foundation. She hijacked a man's memory. The internet lost its mind. Within hours, memes flooded timelines, her face superimposed over movie posters reading The Widow's Empire and Legacy for Sale. But while everyone was laughing, a darker undercurrent began to swirl. Because right after Rogan aired those receipts, his studio servers were hit with what cybersecurity experts later described as a targeted infiltration. Files vanished. Email chains were corrupted. Even Rogan's personal messages went missing. And when the system was restored, the team discovered that one specific folder, the one containing the raw copy of the leaked dinner video, was gone. Jamie, Rogan's longtime producer, looked visibly shaken during a follow-up stream. "Someone's trying to bury this," he said. "This isn't some random hack. This was professional." Rogan's face hardened. "Then we're getting close to something they don't want people to see." That line, "something they don't want people to see," became an internet rallying cry. Fans started digging. Journalists from independent platforms began requesting access to financial filings, phone logs, anything. And that's when the real twist landed. Late one evening, a reporter from the National Ledger published an expose titled "The Widow's Secret Connection." It detailed a discovery that stunned even Rogan's most loyal viewers. According to the Ledger's investigation, the widow had maintained private communication with a political consultancy firm in Washington, D.C., one that had previously handled crisis management for several scandal-ridden donors. The company, Stratus Strategies, specialized in narrative engineering and public sentiment redirection. Translation: they made bad people look good, or at least confusing enough that nobody could tell the difference. One of Stratus's internal emails, obtained through a whistleblower, contained the following line: "We can neutralize Rogan with the right pressure. Influence the influencers, make him the distraction." In other words, the widow had allegedly hired a PR machine not to defend herself, but to destroy Joe Rogan's credibility. That night, Rogan went live again. His voice was sharp, almost angry. "They've been trying to flip the narrative. She's paying professionals to make me look like the villain. But I'm not scared of her. I'm scared of the people protecting her." He then played a new clip that his team had recovered from backup drives, a voicemail allegedly left by one of the widow's consultants. "Stop chasing this story. Joe, you're not just poking the widow. You're poking the people behind her." Viewers went cold. The voicemail didn't sound like a threat. It sounded like a warning, but Rogan didn't stop. He leaned closer to the camera, eyes burning. "If she's got people behind her, then I want to know who they are. And I'm gonna find out." That moment turned Rogan from commentator to crusader. Overnight, he became the face of what the internet started calling the Widow War. His supporters compared him to Edward Snowden and Julian Assange, claiming he was risking everything to expose a global scam. His detractors accused him of inciting a witch hunt against a grieving woman. Meanwhile, the widow stayed silent. No interviews. No statements. Just silence until she finally broke it. In the most calculated way possible, at exactly 10:17 p.m., 3 days after Rogan's last episode. Her official social media accounts all posted the same thing: a sleek, black and white image of her late husband's foundation logo overlaid with the words, "The truth isn't what they tell you. It's what they hide." Below it was a single date. April 9, no caption. No comment. Just a date. Speculation exploded. Was she planning to release her own evidence? Was it a counterattack? Or something worse? One of Rogan's inside sources, reportedly a former Stratus strategist, key contractor, leaked a chilling message to the Independent Wire. "She's sitting on something big. A drop that could flip the narrative overnight. They're calling it the Lazarus File. No one knew what was inside it." Some claimed it was proof Rogan's recordings had been manipulated. Others said it contained evidence linking him to private donors who wanted Charlie's foundation dismantled. Rogan responded, "Live. If she's got something, release it. Don't tease it. Don't threaten me. Let the world see." But as that date, April 9th, approached, strange things started happening again. Rogan's episodes mentioning her name vanished from multiple platforms. Podcast feeds froze. Even search results started redirecting to error pages. Fans began screaming censorship, demanding transparency from Spotify and YouTube. And when April 9th finally arrived, the internet held its breath. The widow went live, smiling, calm, dressed in all white. Her first words were simple, but they changed everything. Joe Rogan isn't the one exposing lies. He's the lie they built to distract you. The stream cut off seconds later. Was it sabotage? A planned cliffhanger? Nobody knows. But what everyone agreed on was this: the war between Joe Rogan and the widow wasn't over. It had only just begun. The world didn't just watch Charlie Kirk's widow's livestream. It froze on it for 10 haunting seconds before the screen went black. She stared straight into the camera like she knew something nobody else did. Her voice didn't tremble. Her smile didn't falter. She looked like a woman who had already won. And when she said, "Joe Rogan is the lie they built to distract you," the entire internet imploded. Within minutes, clips of that phrase were everywhere. TikTok edits turned her into a supervillain. Twitter threads tried to decode her meaning. Was she admitting something? Was she threatening Rogan? Or worse, was she implying that Rogan himself was part of a bigger deception? That single sentence set off a media frenzy. Unlike anything the podcast world had ever seen, the aftermath of the STREM Rogan's team tried to go live in response, but their feed crashed almost immediately. Jamie, his producer, managed to tweet, "Our systems are being flooded. Something's not right. Please mirror everything." Those words, "mirror everything," became a rallying cry. Rogan's fans began screen recording everything they could find: old clips, deleted posts, even cached web pages of his episodes. Reddit threads sprang up, filled with instructions on how to archive the truth. In one night, an army of internet sleuths began treating Rogan's show like it was evidence in a crime scene. And then, at 3 a.m., a mysterious file appeared online. No author, no watermark, no explanation, titled "The Lazarus File, Unredacted." The file was nearly 600 megabytes and encrypted. Within an hour, hackers cracked the password. Inside were hundreds of screenshots, partial transcripts, and video fragments, all of them referencing one thing: Project Lazarus. Project Lazarus, according to the documents. Project Lazarus was a joint initiative between several media consulting firms, one of which was confirmed to be Stratus Strategies, the same company tied to the widow. The project's stated goal: posthumous narrative reconstruction and media rebranding. Translation: turning tragedy into opportunity. The files revealed a system, a literal playbook for controlling public sentiment after the death of a high-profile figure. It outlined everything from grief management to symbolic redirection. Under the widow section, it listed her as primary successor asset, CKW. There were instructions on when to cry, how to frame interviews, which quotes to use for sympathy, and how to soften criticism through maternal rhetoric. One particularly disturbing memo read, "Objective, maintain martyr framework. If scrutiny arises, redirect to emotional fatigue or spiritual awakening narrative." In the margin, someone had written the initials WC, which internet detectives were quick to assume stood for widow. Charlie Rogan RSPO. In Desk 1, Rogan finally managed to get a stable feed. He was furious. His first words were simple but seething. They called this a project. They called human tragedy a project. He flipped through the documents live, reading passages aloud while his team blurred sensitive details on screen. His voice cracked once, not from fear, but disgust. This isn't about politics anymore. It's about power. This woman didn't just use grief. She industrialized it. Fans in the live chat erupted. Comments like hashtag expose Lazarus and hashtag justice for Charlie flooded the stream, but as Rogan kept talking, his tone shifted. He looked down, then back at the camera. There's something else in these files. Something. About me? The chat went silent. He read slowly. Media anchor, external distraction node, podcast containment vector for cultural destabilization. Then he whispered, almost to himself, that's my name, my podcast. The document seemed to suggest that Rogan's entire investigation had been anticipated, that his rise, his influence, even his exposure of the widow, was part of a larger operation, a planned containment strategy meant to absorb public outrage and prevent people from looking deeper. The internet melts, DOWNet was like dropping gasoline on an inferno. Overnight, everyone started asking the same question. Was Joe Rogan manipulated into becoming part of the cover-up? Conspiracy threads exploded. People claimed the hack that released the Lazarus file was staged to discredit Rogan. Others swore that both he and the widow were pawns, two sides of the same coin, used by hidden hands to keep the public confused and divided. A viral tweet read, "They made her the villain and him the hero, so we'd never question who wrote the script." Even Rogan's friends began to panic. Screenshots leaked of texts between him and fellow podcasters. One read, "Joe, this goes above all of us. Don't trust anyone." Meanwhile, the widow resurfaced, not in person, but through a press release sent to every major news outlet. It read like something from a political thriller. "Joe Rogan's obsession with me has endangered lives. He doesn't realize he's being used. I forgive him. But soon, the world will see who the real architects are." She signed it simply, CKW. The press release was perfectly timed. Within hours, it had flipped the conversation. News anchors began questioning whether Rogan was spiraling. Editorials called him a casualty of misinformation. Spotify temporarily locked his account for review. But then, the twist. Within the twist, the secret CLIP2 AM. A 12-second clip leaked onto Telegram. It appeared to be taken from a security camera, time-stamped months before Charlie Kirk's death. The footage showed the widow in a private office, on a phone call. "Widow, he found out about Lazarus. If he speaks, it all collapses." The clip cut off abruptly. It spread faster than anything before it, minus 20 million views in a single night. Rogan's fans treated it as proof that Charlie's death hadn't been natural. Even skeptics admitted the timing was too eerie to dismiss. But mainstream media went silent. No coverage. No analysis. Just silence. A silence that, too many, said everything. The missing episode either next morning. Rogan promised one more episode, the one that ends it all. He said he had the full video and proof of a cover-up bigger than anyone imagined. The world waited, but when the episode dropped, it lasted only 3 minutes. Rogan looked exhausted, almost hollow. He whispered, "They got to me. They showed me something I can't unsee." He leaned closer, eyes glassy. "If anything happens to me, look for the phrase resonance protocol. That's the real story." And the screen glitched and went black. His channel vanished 5 minutes later. The final REACTO in news broke within hours that Rogan's studio had been temporarily secured by federal authorities. His staff claimed not to know where he was. Fans swore they saw him boarding a private plane in Austin. Others believed he'd gone underground, and then, from an unknown account on X, formerly Twitter, one final message appeared. The handle read at Resonance Node the phrase Rogan had just mentioned. The tweet said, "He was right. They're rewriting history again. Phase 2 begins soon." Attached was a single image, Charlie Kirk's widow, standing at a podium, smiling as flashbulbs exploded behind her. The caption below read, "Welcome to the Lazarus Movement. Welcome to the Lazarus Movement." Nobody knows who posted it. Nobody knows where Rogan is. But the widow's public comeback, rebranded, powerful. Untouchable, has the entire world terrified. Because if she was the villain Rogan painted her to be, why does it now look like she's the one running everything? And if Rogan really was the distraction they built, who's writing the script now? To be continued. And that's where everything stands right now. Total chaos, total uncertainty, and a question that refuses to go away. Who's really controlling this story? Joe Rogan has vanished from public view. His podcast archives wiped, his accounts frozen. Charlie Kirk's widow, the woman he spent months calling the architect of grief, is back. Not hiding, not defending herself, but standing in front of cameras under a new banner, the Lazarus Movement. She's the face of it now, smiling, polished, untouchable. And yet, somewhere deep in the internet, a shadow account tied to Rogan's last words, @ResonanceNode, keeps posting cryptic messages, counting down to something. Nobody knows what. Nobody knows when. So now it's up to you. Do you believe Joe Rogan was right all along that Charlie's widow is the cold, calculating manipulator he exposed, a woman who turned tragedy into profit and rebranded her husband's death into power? Or did Rogan fall into the very trap she warned about, a distraction engineered to keep the public angry, divided, and blind to who's really pulling the strings? Drop your theories in the comments right now. Seriously, I want to know which side you're on. Because at this point, every clue matters. Every screenshot, every file, every symbol. We're piecing together a digital war that may decide which version of truth survives. And if you've been watching this story unfold, you already know one thing. This isn't over. The Lazarus countdown is still ticking. The leaks haven't stopped. And the people who know what really happened to Charlie Kirk, they're still out there, quiet, waiting, watching. So don't miss what's next. Hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because the moment that next drop hits, whether it's Rogan resurfacing or the widow revealing her final move, you'll want to be here first. The truth isn't coming quietly this time. It's coming with names, faces, and consequences. Stay alert. Stay questioning. Because the story of Joe Rogan and Charlie Kirk's widow, it's only just beginning.